Councilmember Wilcoxon. Oh, he just got on. Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Present.
Councilmember Somerville.
Present.
Mayor Richardson.
Present.
Councilmember Morgan.
Present.
Councilmember Simmons.
Present.
Councilmember Jones Chance.
Present.
Councilmember Wilcoxon.
Present.
With all present, there's a quorum.
All right, thank you. Okay, we can go ahead with the agenda, please.
Mayor, the next item on the agenda is agenda approval.
Do we have a motion to approve the
Make
So
agenda?
moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I hear two ayes.
Aye.
All right. It sounds like it stands approved. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, the next item on the agenda is public comment. You can see if there's anyone that would like to speak in the attendees gallery. Currently, there's no one with their hand up. We can wait a few minutes.
If there's anyone that would like to speak, please hit the raise your hand button.
Doesn't appear that anyone would like to make comment.
Okay.
So we will go on to the consent agenda.
Okay,
Resolved by
welcome,
the-
Mr. Wilcoxon.
What's
I'm
that?
sorry.
I just said welcome.
Oh, hi.
Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti that the following items be approved. Resolution number 2020-216, approving the minutes of October 6, 2020. Resolution number 2020-217, approval of appointments to boards and commissions. Resolution number 2020-218, approving ordinance 1368, an ordinance to amend Chapter 58 of the Ypsilanti Code to provide consistent language of the definition of prohibited discrimination and to remove Section 58-72 affirmative language.
So move.
Is there support for the consent agenda?
I support.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Clerk Hellenga, does this require a voice vote or a roll call?
This would be a roll call, Mayor.
All right, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you.
Next item on the agenda under resolutions, motions, and discussions is resolution number 2020-219. It is resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti that the ordinance entitled an ordinance to amend the noxious weed ordinance for weed control, section 110-80 at SEC of Ypsilanti City Code be adopted on second and final reading.
So move.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Who was that?
That's Brian Jones Chance.
Okay.
I'd like to suggest an amendment to allow planting on the lawn extension that doesn't obstruct sight lines for motorists and pedestrians. I think that was the main concern with the planting on the verge there.
Is there a second to that amendment?
So where would that fit in the, where are we?
I think in the exception section.
81?
Sorry, I'm scrolling. I'm working on it.
I think it's section 81. 81.
It's in the exception. I think it's the second part of the exception. Okay.
Mhm.
It's section B of the exception.
So what would the language be?
B.
It may require a separate section since we probably do want to maintain no planting on the city right of way. So maybe an item D, which just says no permit planting on the lawn extension between the sidewalk and the street, which obstructs sight lines for motorists or pedestrians.
And we do have Mr. Bauer if we need assistance with that language.
And you're saying that we should add that as a special provision for D, as a cautionary, or just to?
Well, to allow it, because I think if we were to add it to section B, that language might make it ambiguous as to whether or not it's being allowed on the city right of way at certain heights, or.
I mean, if okay, this is on city property and on regular residential property, correct? Like it growing at this height.
Well, this is only for the lawn extension between the sidewalk and the street, which have to be maintained by residents.
Okay.
So can I suggest that for B, we just strike or the lawn extension between the sidewalk and the street, and then make section D, permit planting is allowed on the lawn extension within,
So yeah, I think that's where I think negative language might be easier. So no permit planting on the lawn extension between the sidewalk and street, which obstructs sight lines for motorists or pedestrians.
Are there currently people with things planted in that area that makes it an obstruction? Is that an issue, or is that something we're trying to avoid in the future?
Well, no, I don't think anyone has anything that are obstructions that I've seen, but people do plant there. But, I understand that you don't want someone growing, 4-foot high shrubs that block your view of the corner.
Like some people have those little doorknobs, those little doors on the bottom of their tree, look like an elf door, and they put gates and little small things around trees that's in that area. Would that be? And it's not nothing growing. It's decorated, but it's things still sticking up around that could be that's not identified as planting, but could still be an obstruction.
Well, I think the idea that it would be that's fine because it allows you to still see the intersection.
Okay.
question is whether this is already covered in the part of the ordinance that covers obstruction of.
Okay.
That's my question to Mr. Barr. Is this already taken care of? another part of city ordinance. Where's Mr. Barr?
Mr.
There
Barr,
is a provision there is a provision in the city code that prohibits obstructions for traffic and that sort of thing. It's a little bit ambiguous here because generally the city right-of-way goes all the way up to the sidewalk. That green median area is part of the city right-of-way, but it's not improved. But I think what the amendment is suggesting is that on that median green space, that this planting would be allowed if there was a permit. And if you wanted to do that, one suggestion would be to table this, send it back. I'll prepare some proper language and work with the council member, and then bring it back so that you have something to look at.
Councilmember Brian Chance, does that work for you?
Well, I may actually have some confusion then about city rights of way and lawn extensions, and well, it sounds like lawn extensions are city rights of way, but are there others that I'm not thinking of here? Like,
Well, the general rule is for city streets, the city street right-of-way is generally 66 feet wide. And generally the paved part of it is considerably less than that, about maybe 40 feet, 50 feet. And the rest of it is in that green area that runs between the sidewalk and the paved street.
okay.
Wow. 66 feet?
Yes, and if Joe or someone else is on there, maybe Ron, they can correct me, but I believe that's what the situation is. Yes, sir.
Mr. Barr, from what I can tell, you're correct.
So that's like from my front door to my neighbor's door across the street from me.
Well, it depends on the area and where you are exactly. We had some concern on this on Oakwood. Oakwood is actually wider than 66 feet, but the fact that it's not improved with a pavement does not mean it's not a city right of way.
And whatever, again, as long as the language isn't redundant and whatever gets the goal accomplished, like you say, if there's already language, is that what I heard is already sufficient language to not have people plant things in that area?
Okay, Clerk Hellenga.
Has there been support given or a second for this motion?
No.
I think we're still trying to figure out what the motion is.
I think we were working on the wording for that amendment. Mr. Barr had recommended that it be given back to him to work out the wording and it be brought back. And this was a motion from Councilperson Jones Chance. So I was asking him if he would agree with that. And if not, if there's no second, then it will die. So.
Well, if I could read, I think you were trying to, Councilmember Jones Chance, you were trying to say there would be no permit planting that would impede sight lines of traffic, and you wanted to add that. So this is the language that I had. Add to 81 subsection D, no permit planting on lawn between the sidewalk and the street that would impede sight lines of traffic. Is that correct in your motion?
Yes.
So
I would support that. I would support that.
Okay, so it has been moved and supported.
Now, when we say permit, that means anything that's non-permit, doesn't have a permit, it will be allowed if it's under 12 inches.
No, this would allow people to plant in that area with a permit. so long as it's not impeding vision.
And permits for planting there are free, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it'd be an easier way to track people who have those planted at that area if they have to get a permit.
So,
Okay, it's been moved and second. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Wilcoxon, you look like you.
This is a curious thing. So with the definition of city right of way and the lawn extensions being not mutually exclusive, would it be possible to just put this into section B and just add the language at the end, say no permit planting on city right of way or a lawn extension between the sidewalk and streets that would obstruct traffic vision or whatever the language was. It's not clear why there has to be two different sections of this if the right of way and lawn extensions are essentially the same thing.
I think that makes sense.
I agree with Steve.
So is that a friendly amendment to add that section to B and not make its own in D?
Yes.
All right. Or do I withdraw my second, or is that a friendly amendment?
It's a friendly amendment, so you and Ryan would have to agree to that.
Okay, I would agree with that.
So yes, for me too.
Okay, Mr. Bauer, does that work? He moved them.
Andrew, do you understand the amendment proposed?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
Yeah, yes, it was the language that I just previously read. However, instead of adding a new subsection, it would just be added to subsection B.
So if that would work as long as Andrew can help me revise the document.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Andrew, would you call the roll on the amendment?
Okay, so this is on the.
Well, would you read the whole thing, how it's going to fit in there, please, first?
Let's see. So this would be, the language would be added to subsection B of 11081. And it, let's see. No permit planting on the city right of way or the lawn extension between the sidewalk and the street that would impede sight lines of traffic. Mayor, you muted.
All right, Councilmember Wilcoxon.
I'm just a little curious for the legal interpretation of the negative statement. And could this be interpreted as no permit planting, and that's a ancillary clause, and so people could interpret that as there's no permit planting on that? Or does the clause at the end mean that only in that case is there no, is it the restriction on the permit planting? Is it a restriction on the visibility, or is it a restriction on the planting? And so I just want to make sure the wording is right so it doesn't get confused later on.
Well, the best drafting is in positive terms, generally not negative terms. So
so if this said permit planting is allowed in the city right of ways as long as it does not inhibit line of sight.
yes, that would work also. With drafting, it's difficult to do it at the table when you're not looking at the whole document.
Mm-hmm.
But what you suggest, I think, would work.
And then that couldn't be misinterpreted as something else.
As long as we can put them in enforceable terms.
I would like to recommend, so that we don't have something that we really don't want or something that could be confused, that we actually send this back to Mr. Byer and let he and Andrew work out the reading and the wording so that there would not be any mistakes about it. People could not misconstrue it.
Could I read one more iteration potentially of this?
Yes.
Permit planting on the city right of way or the lawn extension shall not impede sight lines of traffic. So it's indicating that if you are permitted to, have a garden within this section of the property, it shall not impede traffic or you'd be in violation.
I think that's pretty simple and pretty straightforward.
Mr. Byer, is that acceptable?
Well, going back to what Councilmember Wilcoxon said, the question, what do you mean when you say impede? Legally, that usually means a car stuck in the middle of the road or something like that. What we're really talking about is obstructing sight distances and things.
So should that be part of the wording, sight distances?
I could
Well,
say,
I think what you're talking about is saying that you would allow planning, but you don't want it to interfere with the sight of automobiles and pedestrians for the traffic. It's really not impeding the traffic. It's interfering with the sight, and I think there's sections in the code that define this and talk about shrubbery shall not obstruct clear lines of vision for traffic, things like that.
so instead of impede, just change that word to obstruct.
I see your hand.
Well, if I was drafting it, I would put in something about lines of sight, and it would not interfere with visual observation of traffic, things like that. That was kind of the reason that the situation was put in, that the section was put in to not allow planting on the median, so that you did not have that situation. But it certainly in some places, it could be put in that it would not interfere with the sight lines.
Councilmember Morgan, you had your hand up.
I just was wondering, like, when we're talking about lines of sight and driving and impeding sight, were those between the sidewalk and the street? Like, except if you're on a corner, very few of those places wouldn't even really matter. Like, I don't know how it would impede anyone's driving, turning left, unless you're turning left or turning right. Maybe where Congress is, where it divides, but houses just on a regular street, there's no, unless they're so high that you get out the car and can't see the house. I don't imagine unless the cars are turning. So I'm thinking about corner houses particularly, but more than just houses between the corners, it won't even apply. I'm just thinking, like, logistically, how can someone violate this?
Well, you have not only automobiles on the street, but you also have automobiles on private driveways and pedestrians crossing and things like that. So unfortunately, it's not as simple as it might appear. I'm not a traffic engineer, but I know there are places in the city that we've had difficulty with vegetation growing up and obstructing the view for drivers, which causes a dangerous situation.
Okay, I know, like right here on what's that, Wallace Street. I think it's like kind of a median. You can see longer bushes, but I know it's an issue if we're creating some solutions for it. So I just wanted to know. Thank you.
All right, Councilwoman Simmons.
I was just going to mention the concern about, cars backing out of driveways and whatnot, and obstructing, having obstructed vision and not seeing pedestrians or other cars or cyclists, so.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Wilcoxen?
Nope.
No? Okay. All right, well, Clerk Hellenga, would you call the, well, I didn't see if Councilmember Somerville or Mayor Pro Tem, did either of you have anything? Comments on this?
I don't have any, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, would you call the roll, please?
Prior to doing that, did council want me to reread what's actually being voted on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So the last friendly amendment would be the no permit planting on lawn between the sidewalk and the street that would impede sight lines of traffic. So that's where we were with the last friendly amendment.
I rescind that friendly amendment and would like to amend it to the language that you wrote down
Okay.
regarding Mr. Barr's. So did
Andrew,
you read that back?
So here is the last iteration. The permit planting on the city right of way or the lawn extension shall not obstruct sight lines of traffic. And this would be 11081 subsection B.
I make the friendly amendment with that language.
I like that language.
Right, but it also, I think it needs to include pedestrians. Originally, I think pedestrians was included in that.
That was not included.
Pedestrians was not. Did
was
your
not.
original language, Councilmember Jones Chance, have pedestrians? Did it include pedestrians?
Included motorists and pedestrians, yes, but I think it's implied by traffic, maybe.
Mr. Barr?
I mean, either way, it's fine.
Yes.
Should pedestrians be included in this obstruction? We changed it to obstruction, but should that include motorists and pedestrians?
Well, that would be a policy issue. That would be my preference, yes.
All right, thank you.
So just the last section here, obstruct sight lines of vehicles and pedestrian traffic.
That begins with the word "the," correct?
It'd be permit plantings on the city right of way or the lawn extension shall not obstruct sight lines of vehicles or pedestrian traffic.
We can say all, right? We can start it with all, correct? All permanent planting, just to be clear that in the case is that's what we're talking about specifically and unequivocally, no? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Would you read what you have?
Okay, so this would be what will be the amendment that will be voted upon. It would be permit planting on the city right of way or the lawn extension shall not obstruct sight lines of vehicles or pedestrian traffic.
Okay.
And so at this point, do we need to have Brian and Anthony agree to that friendly amendment?
Has the friendly amendment actually changed, or has the wording changed? Councilmember Morgan, I see your hand.
No, I have nothing to say. I'm sorry. I'm just getting animated. No, nothing to say.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hello.
Okay. All right.
All right, ready?
Can we have a vote? We have spent quite a bit of time on this friendly amendment.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Talk to you in a minute.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. Is there any more discussion on the original motion before us? All right, Councilmember Simmons or Mayor Pro Tem, did you have anything on the original? Okay. All right, seeing none, seeing no hands, would you call the roll, please, Clerk Hellenga?
Here's the roll on the as amendment, 2020-20 or 219 as amended. Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. I didn't realize I was muted.
All righty, moving on to the next resolution. Resolution number 2020-220, resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas the City of Ypsilanti will be entering into an agreement with the Highland Cemetery Association to restore the stained glass windows in Starkweather Chapel at 943 North River Street. And whereas the City of Ypsilanti has submitted an application to the Michigan State Historic Preservation Office for the Certified Local Government Grant Program for $45,000 for the Starkweather Chapel stained glass window restoration for the resource located at 943 North River Street. And whereas it is required component of the grant for the city to have a memorandum of understanding with the Highland Cemetery Association for the execution of the grant. Now therefore be it resolved that the Ypsilanti City Council approves the mayor and city clerk represented by the city attorney to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Highland Cemetery Association for the execution of the CLG grant for the Starkweather Chapel stained glass window restoration project.
So moved.
Is there a motion? Thank you.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilmember Morgan and supported by Councilmember Wilcoxen, correct?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Is there any discussion?
So it's a good thing that we can support some of the work that's already been done by a lot of dedicated volunteers. So it's a good thing that we can preserve some legacy. I'm kind of glad to be a part of it. Good job to everybody who was, and the presentation that was made. So it's good to see a lot of that restoration. So I'm glad we can be a part of it.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Mayor Pro Tem Brown or Councilmember Jones Chance, any comments?
Nothing here.
Seeing none, Clerk Hellenga, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Abstain.
Mayor Richardson.
Yes,
With 6 yes and 1 abstention, motion carries.
thank you.
All right, on to the next. Resolution number 2020-221, resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti that an extension of the memorandum of understanding between Washtenaw Community College and the City of Ypsilanti regarding Park Ridge Community Center be approved, and the mayor and city clerk are authorized to sign for and on behalf of the city, subject to the approval of the city attorney.
So moved.
I'll support.
Thank you. It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Council Member Morgan, no? Okay, I did see Mr. Williamson in the audience. Mr. Williamson, did you have anything you would like to say?
Hello there.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening, Mr. Williamson.
All right. Thank
Oh,
you guys for being so formal. I appreciate it. No, I just wanted to say on behalf of Washington Community College and our staff and team at Park Ridge Community Center, we're hopeful that this resolution will be able to be passed because we've had a very strong working relationship for a little more than a decade now. And as you guys are aware or not, we're doing some wonderful revisions and remodifications in effort to try to get us in and be able to provide some services to our community during this very difficult time. So I am just grateful that we are at this point and hopeful that we can continue this wonderful relationship.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments from any council person? City Manager McMullen, I saw your hand.
We have
You're-
Brad Tucker in our audience tonight from Washtenaw Community College, and would like to see if he'd have anything to add.
Thank you, City Manager McMullen and council and staff. I echo Anthony's comments. We have had a strong working relationship with the city and continue to hopefully expand that. Some of you may know that in addition to the renovations that are happening at Park Ridge, we realigned our structure. When I became Associate VP back in September of 19, Anthony Williamson, we made sure that he was promoted and given more staff than he had before. And so now we have the management team. Anthony has help as a manager and some other team members. And we've increased our budget to be able to support the work that we're doing at Park Ridge and Harriet Street. So we're excited to continue to be partners with the city.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Tucker, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you in the audience. So
No problem, Mayor Richardson.
thank you. Councilmember Morgan, is that an up hand or are you just?
Yes, it's an up hand.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Anthony and Mr. Tucker. Who else is that over there? I wanted to ask a question as far as the memorandum of understanding. Since 2014, how many times has it been extended?
I know that we have extended it each year past its original date. The last extension would have expired this year in 2020. So that would be four or five extensions.
If it's, and I believe it's such a really great program, right? And it says that it was going to expire November 1st, 2020, and it's extended to December 31st. Why not make it longer? Like,
It's
is there
December 31st of 2021.
I can see that. It says November 1st, 2020 to December 31st. That's a month and 30 days. That's a year, a month.
December 31st of 2021.
What are you saying?
Okay, December 31st of the year 2021, not the year 2020.
I'm saying the memorandum starts in November of 2020, correct? November 1st is being renewed, November 1st.
Yeah.
And it lasts until December 31st of 2021.
Yes.
That's a year, a month, and 30 days is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Are you getting at
Okay.
making the agreement longer than?
That's what I'm asking. Why not 2 years or why not every 5 years if it's so good is what I'm asking. Is there something every year that is a criteria to determine whether it's viable for the next year? That's what I'm asking. So a year is awesome. Do they have the funds to see further than that? Or is it just, it's an annual revisiting? That's what I'm asking.
Right. And I think that that's a good question, Councilmember Morgan. And I'm not sure why the initial agreements have been annually, and it could have had something to do with funding. I'm not sure, but I would definitely entertain that for the next year to see if we could possibly, I don't know if it was because we could not look that far down the road when it started. I mean, if you know the history of Park Ridge, there were no donors. And so it was kind of like go from year to year.
Okay.
We're kind of depending on, you know, fundraising. So we can enter into those talks with WCC for the next contract and see what we could figure out if that's possible or not.
I think the partnership is strong, is benefiting everybody. I think there's some wonderful work going on. And that's why I guess things that are viable and are working, how can we work to cement them and keep them long-standing? So I do appreciate the work that everything that Anthony's been doing. I've been working with him for at least 10 years, and I appreciate the work. And so I just want to make it more sustainable. But I appreciate all the work you put into it too, City Manager. So thank you. But I just wanted to know why it's been an annual thing and why can't we double up? But I digress.
Councilmember Wilcoxon.
Mr. Morgan brings up a good point, and you know, I don't know the origin of this. And the city manager said, if you know the history, I was like, well, I don't know the history. But thinking about, you know, the programming that I know about is excellent. So my question is, you know, has this ever gone out for an RFP? Has there been anybody else that has approached the city about doing programming at Park Ridge?
My knowledge, it has never gone out RFP. Since you're not aware of the history, some of the history is that Park Ridge was considered one of the park facilities that was no longer going to be funded by the city of Ypsilanti and was facing shutdown. And the Park Ridge community, they had a commission or board that came together to save Park Ridge, and they put in volunteer work to save it, and then eventually partnered with WCC, who helped them to save it. So it wasn't as if we actually went out with an RFP asking for people to help us save it. It was actually a grassroots, you know, type of thing that came up where the people of the community got together to save it. And I believe that Mayor Richardson was a part of that. And then WCC became a leg of that along with Mr. Barfield. So it was a volunteer thing so that the center would not be shut down. So no RFP was ever taken. The players, they volunteered themselves to keep it going. I'm not sure if we would even consider it, but it's something we're talking about. But I think that what we've established at Park Ridge and our partnership with the WCC, I don't think we would want to interrupt that. WCC continues to provide the programming and the staffing. We would essentially be asking someone to come in and revamp an important monument in the community, an important support group that's very vital to the community. And I think if anything, we want to stabilize that and continue to build on that. But that's just my 2 cents. They came to the rescue and we appreciate it. And they've been very consistent with their contributions. Actually, they did a lot of work in working on our air quality due to COVID. And so a lot of things that have helped us to stay open even during this time of COVID. So.
No, I agree. Thank you. That I just didn't know what the origin of that was, and that's very helpful. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, City Manager, for that. Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, Clerk Hellenga. But before that, I would like to express a thanks to WCC for their continued work, not only at Park Ridge, but their continued work also at the Harriet Street Center. It certainly has benefited the community, both of those centers, and not just the community, but the center, because we do have people coming from all over the city. And even in the summer, we've had people from the township coming into Park Ridge, and certainly down at the Harriet Center. So thank you. And if you would extend thanks, Mr. Tucker, to President, oh gosh, her name's right on the tip of my tongue.
Hellenga.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And also to the Board of Trustees. Appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Yes.
Will do. Thank you.
All right, Kirk Hellenga, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones Chant,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember
I'm
Morgan.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm abstaining. And I am abstaining based on the fact that I am the president of the advisory board and have been, and not that we have put in any have any legal say or anything in it, but I just would rather abstain from that. I'm sorry, but I am grateful that council is approving it.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Motion carries with 6 yes and 1 abstention.
Thank you. And thanks to council. Park Ridge Center is very, very important to the community, And that importance is building day by day, really. So thank you. Okay, next.
Council, next resolution is resolution number 2020-222. Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas the City Council of the City of Ypsilanti deems it necessary to comply with the State of Michigan 2011 Public Act 152 as amended, and whereas the Act contains 3 options for complying with the requirements of the Act as follows. Hard cap option limits employers' total annual health costs for employees based on coverage levels. 80-20 option limits employers' share of total health care costs to not more than 80%, requires annual majority vote. Opt-out option, the city may exempt itself from requirements of the Act by an annual 2-3 vote. And whereas the City Council has decided to adopt the opt-out option as its choice of compliance under the Act, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Ypsilanti elects to comply with 2011 Public Act 152 by approving and adopting the opt-out option for the medical benefit plan coverage year 1/1/21 through 12/31/21.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion? Do we have any presentation on that?
Good evening,
Ms.
Council.
Jones, would you like to have something to say?
Sure. Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
I just want to thank you for this opportunity to bring this before you tonight. We're asking you to select option number 3 to opt out, just as you did last year. And if you have any questions, we do have Michelle Bolzer from VTC with us tonight, as well as Reagan Basabica, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Any comments or questions from council? Council Member Jones Chance.
Yeah, in the recommendation, there's a reference to decreased cost. And I'm curious, what was the cost last year and what are the anticipated savings?
Reagan, would you answer that?
Good evening,
Good
Council.
evening.
Yeah. So overall, there was a decrease in the premiums of our healthcare. So as much as $10,000 for a family plan. And so what we're recommending right now is for the city to adopt the 15%, like a 15% share on the employee based on the illustrative rate, and then the rest to be paid by the city. And with that, we are looking into looking at around $200,000 in savings. But this is still dependent on the open enrollment. That's just if we will have the same census as what we have this year.
So the cost to the city this year, the estimate is $1,036,000, just about.
Yes.
And so last year they were about 1.2.
Yes, around 1.2. Yes.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Council? Councilmember Morgan? Were you asked? Were you?
Nope, I'm just ready to move on. Nope, I'm just ready.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. I saw you moving. I didn't know if your hand was going up. Okay, Clerk Hellenga, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. And
you.
thanks to both of our staff for presenting on that. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Council, the next on the agenda is resolution number 2020-223, resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas the Council of the City of Ypsilanti deems it to be in the best interest of the city to continue to keep healthcare costs in line with our budget, and whereas the current Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and Blue Care Network plans will continue to keep healthcare costs in line with our budget while still offering additional benefits to the active employees and retirees that are eligible to participate. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the City of Ypsilanti approves a one-year contract from January 1, 2021 to December 31st, 2021 to offer the following Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and Blue Care Network benefit plans to all eligible participating employees and retirees. Community Blue PPO, Simply Blue PPO 3000, BCN HMO HSA, and Medicare Advantage. Further, that the Council of the City of Ypsilanti approves a one-year contract with EHIM to administer the self-funded WRAP and prescription portions of the BCBS Community Blue PPO program and coordinate all benefits and costs with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan.
Your motion?
So move.
Thank you.
I'll support.
Thank you. It's been moved and supported. Do we have any thing from our staff members?
Yes, Council, thank you again. There are no changes to our plans this year. They're the same as we offered last year.
Thank you. Any other comments from staff?
Thank you, Ms. Jones, for giving us the last information. Thank you for keeping it really short. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councilmember Morgan. All right, if no questions or comments, Clerk Hellenga, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Wilcoxon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones Chance.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Ms. Jones and Mr. Basilica. Thank you very much
Thank you, Mayor.
for all the work that you do. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. Basabika.
Thank you, Councilmember Morgan.
What up, Chief Hobbs? I see you.
Council, boy, you are really animated tonight, Councilmember
I
Moore.
mean, I'm just,
It's all right.
I'm
Clerk
trying to
elect-
lie. It's just gonna be a short meeting. I'm just trying to lie. It's gonna be a very short meeting in my hope, right? So I'm just talking.
Clerk Hellenga, please.
Resolution number 2020-224, resolved by the council of the city of Ypsilanti, whereas sidewalk snow removal is vital to safety in the city of Ypsilanti, and whereas the purchase of equipment is necessary to perform these tasks, and whereas the city council of the city of Ypsilanti has allocated the funds in the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget for this purchase. Now therefore be it resolved that the city of Ypsilanti approves the purchase of a Bobcat L28 small articulated loader for a purchase price of $33,054.40.
I so move.
There's support.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Okay. Mr. Akers, do you have some comments for us?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council.
Good
The Department
evening.
of Thank you. Department of Public Services has scheduled purchases in their budget to increase our capacity to perform certain tasks. One of those purchases is for this Bobcat small articulated loader to help assist with our sidewalk snow removal options. I know nobody may want to hear this, but the snow season is right around the corner. I think we had our first major snowfall on November 11th last year. So we're not very far away from winter, and we're making preparations to get ready. So City Council made the decision last year to prioritize clearing city sidewalks within 24 hours after the end of the snow event. And we are working to increase our staffing and equipment capacity for this issue, hence the purchase before you.
Love to see it.
The primary reason why we selected this Bobcat machine is for its narrow width and its versatility. The machine has a narrow width and will allow us to more safely plow snow from some of the bridges that we have to clear. Many of the bridges in the city have 48-inch wide sidewalks. The sidewalks do extend all the way to the road. So, there are instances we actually had somebody tip over in one of our machines last year. So this machine is narrower and should, allow our staff to more safely plow snow from those areas. Regarding the versatility, we have other Bobcats in the yard for various purposes, and this Bobcat will be able to use the attachments as well. So this is not just a one-season machine. We're going to be able to use this both during the winter and the summer for various tasks. So the fuel of this machine is a diesel engine, and to the best of my knowledge, this is the only option available for the small loader. It is a new product this year. We did notice that they are starting to demo larger electric Bobcat loaders, but they do not have them commercially available for sale in the US. So we did take a look at that. We did consider it as an option. And unfortunately, the technology hasn't caught up quite yet for this machine with Bobcat. The city is a member of the My Deal program, which is Michigan's extended purchasing program, which allows municipalities to purchase certain goods and services at state bid pricing. We have proposed to purchase the Bobcat through this program, and it complies with our purchasing policies. The purchase price is a little bit higher than what we originally anticipated for this vehicle, but we are still projecting to be within budget for motor pool capital expenditures for the year. So we will still make sure that we hit that number that's allocated towards us. So this concludes my summary, and I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from council for Mr. Akers?
I have a comment.
All right.
Just thank you for staying on top of this. I got the alert today that we put out the note for snow removal on our driveways or our sidewalks, and I was just waiting for this. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Simmons.
No, I also want to say thank you. I know it's a tough job, and so I'm happy to support this. Anything we can do to try to, stay up on it and help you and your staff do, their jobs and get it done. I'm happy to support. So, thanks for your hard work.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Akers? Council members, Wilcoxon.
Thanks for looking into the electric option. And this is for Mr. Morgan's benefit. I see on line 15 of the product quotation. No, I'm just messing with you. Thanks. This is.
That's funny. Thanks, Steve.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Jones Chance.
Yeah, do we currently have a Bobcat that we use for this? And the idea was just that was sort of dangerous last year?
No, so we use 3 different pieces of machinery to remove sidewalk snow removal. We have a Honda utility vehicle with a front plow. We have a Newman Whacker loader, which is the same style of loader as what we're purchasing. It's just a different brand, and it's actually a little larger. The reason why we selected the Bobcat is because it's the narrowest that we could find for these type of loaders. Primarily we want to use this to make sure that our staff are more comfortable, cleaning some of those areas where there's, if you go an inch or 2 off in one direction with the larger pieces of equipment, you have the ability to go off the sidewalk. So we're really concerned about staff safety, and adding an additional vehicle to our fleet will allow us to have another staff member out there and getting the sidewalks cleared more quickly.
So the other equipment will continue to be used,
Yes.
and we'll just have more staff out at the same time doing the clearing.
Yes, we're actively coming up with a strategy to dedicate a little bit more staff time towards this activity and also grass cutting for the next season. So we are working on some ideas, but we're going to have enough people to man all 3 machines and spread out throughout the city.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Clerk Hellenga, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Great. Thank you.
All right, Council, the next resolution on the agenda is 2020-225. Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas the City of Ypsilanti seeks to implement policies that protect the public health and provide for economic prosperity despite the challenging climate for business due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas outdoor dining is recognized as a valuable economic development opportunity that consumers have strongly preferred locally since June 2020 over indoor dining options. And whereas the sidewalk cafe permits issued in 2020 and regulated by ordinance in the City of Ypsilanti will expire in November unless otherwise extended by resolution. And now therefore be it resolved that the Ypsilanti City Council approves extending the 2020 sidewalk cafe permits to allow restaurants to continue outdoor dining options for patrons until May 2021, once the new application window for 2021 is set to begin.
Your motion?
So move.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Mr. Jacobs, do you have something you'd like to talk to us about?
I think the memo pretty clearly lays it out. Outdoor dining has been a really important tool that we've used over the summer. And although the street closures are set to expire, we're not trying to get any more extensions there. I do have one restaurant who's indicated that they would like to continue using the sidewalk right away. Under the current ordinance, we would need a resolution to extend that permit. I actually think with the ways that consumer preferences and businesses are rapidly evolving around the pandemic, that this is something that could grow in popularity. And so I want to make sure that we allow for it if it's a safe thing and if it's the will of the council. I could take any questions or describe in more detail what Bobcat Bonnie's is looking to do and what others may look to do should we allow it.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Jacobs?
Looks like Steve has a question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I figured you could.
It looked like Mayor Pro Tem Brown also, for mine.
Oh, sorry. I was looking.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Go for it.
No, she didn't have her hand up yet.
Oh, okay. So a number of my constituents have had interesting comments about the igloos that are being proposed for Bobcat Bonnie's, but this goes to a larger issue in terms of, as a public health concern. If you start making structures outside, it's no longer outside, right? And so the whole point of outside dining is that you've got plenty of airflow and you reduce the probability of inhaling virus that's exhaled from somebody who doesn't know they have it. So the question is, on the face of it, having people outside is fine. It's just a question of what the execution is going to be. When Bobcat Bonnie's set up in Washington Street, they put walls on their tent, things like that. Had to have a conversation about, well, no, that's really not the intent of this. So my question to Mr. Jacobs is what does that plan look like? And if other businesses start to add structures to the outside of the building, what is the plan for having that, for those structures, and what are the limitations for complying with COVID protocols?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Wilcoxon. This summer was an interesting, test case, and we had the opportunity to evaluate, a lot more outdoor dining creations. Many businesses started outdoor cafes for the first time, and it was certainly the first time we'd seen the igloos show up. And so those have been looked over by the building department. All of these outdoor cafes are reviewed by the building department, and any changes to them would have to be approved by the building department to make sure that they're safe. And so a lot of work went into making sure that the tents had clear entry and access points, and that there are fire extinguishers, that they're safely weighted down. And in the case of the igloos, those have been inspected. There would be heat added to those igloos, and that would have to be inspected by the building department before we're able to be allowed to continue with those changes and modifications. And so that's sort of the mechanism by which we evaluate the safety of it. To your point about the public health aspect, yeah, I certainly agree that you're talking about a different thing than we originally were discussing when the street closures were approved and when we started looking at outdoor dining. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. I'm not sure that it's a safer alternative to indoor dining. It could just be a way to add square footage, given that there are restrictions still currently in place that prevent restaurants from being at full capacity. And so it's a safer alternative to add square footage to get more bodies into the building safely and support the business district. And they're doing it in such a way that ventilates and heats these igloos. I hope that answers your question.
So how does it ventilate?
Oh, wait, pardon, go ahead.
So they have positive indoor ventilation. So, it pulls the air. I'm not an HVAC guy, so I can't technically describe it to you. But, those changes to the igloos would be reviewed by the building department to make sure that they were compliant and safe, and all the other reviews that we would do typically with changes to something like that.
So with the health department, given that this isn't really a building, but, it's like when you're inside, there's certain requirements for ventilation in terms of, how many cubic feet of air being moved in a given period of time. This is like, does that extend to these structures since they're temporary? My concern is that you have certain precautions in place for a building and air handling system. So then, you know, with these being temporary structures, do they have to meet the exact same requirements?
As far as the health department review of those, I'm not familiar with whether they would need to come back out and take an indoor air ventilation test. I'm not sure. In fact, I don't think that's something the building department reviews. They review to make sure that nothing's going to catch on fire. And that
it's not going to collapse on something. Right?
Exactly. And so that is a further level of review that the health department might take a look at. But it's a good question, and it's something that I would confer with them about before we move forward.
Are you done, Councilmember Wilcoxon?
Yeah, just one last comment. Well, two last comments. No, I'm not done actually. One comment is, people that go to sit inside these things make a choice. The people who are serving kind of don't have that choice, and they're the ones being exposed to folks. So I just want to bring that up. So whatever the health department reviews on that, I want it to be in terms of that. The other thing goes back to the previous item on the agenda is like, with these structures being on the sidewalk, I'm guessing that part of why we don't extend this through the winter in normal circumstances is because of snow removal on city sidewalks. And so how does this fit into that plan? The businesses are responsible for moving that snow. And how I can imagine that, having the igloos is one thing, having an extension on a storefront then pushes pedestrian traffic out towards the street. And as we get plows and things like that, then you run into a conflict with the snow that's being plowed off and the removal on the sidewalk. So I'm wondering if you had planned that into the scenario.
Yeah, that was something I definitely talked about with the owner of Bobcat Bonnie's, how to manage that expectation around snow removal and accessibility. We went out there and measured to make sure that there weren't any issues with the igloos all the way up on the sidewalk off of the street. And that does measure out appropriately. And they understand their obligation as the business owner to remove the snow from their own sidewalk. And they're willing to put together a plan and remain in compliance with those expectations regarding snow removal.
Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you. Councilmember Simmons.
Oh, I was just going to comment that, I think with the outdoor seating, I've been thinking the same kind of things, for the winter time and having these enclosures. But, the thing I think I settle on is that, it's not like they're hermetically sealed, and there is, more airflow than there would be, say, inside. And I'm also, agree, with Mr. Jacobs about, supporting our business district the best we can. But Steve does bring up a good point too about coming winter time with the snow and whatnot. But I guess I'm glad to hear that they're going to be particularly mindful of that as we go through this winter season.
Councilmember Morgan.
I'm excited that we want to support the businesses, and in my mind, I want to know, like, feasibly, what are we saying? So we want to extend it from, because it's set to expire November 1st. We want to extend it through May. And we're thinking about not just the snow, but I see people now, it get too chilly to eat outside. You see the wind blowing, umbrellas and just the rain and the wind. So theoretically, like, you got December, January, February, people are not going to be able to eat outside in those months. So realistically, like, I don't know who eats outside in February and January, like in the winter. Oh, okay, was Mr. Wilcoxon, but besides that few, I don't see people really utilizing this from December through February. I think it's a moot point at that point. I think March comes spring, I think it's an opportunity for people who don't have specialized apparatuses to take that weather. It's only going to benefit a few restaurants. So an extension for that long, and with those, in my opinion, months that won't be really useful, and only having a few people really benefit from it. As much as it has helped, I think that window is closing very fast. And so to leave it open until May 2021, and this is only my personal opinion, that it's only going to get maybe 40 days, 50 days left out of that. And if that's what the businesses need, I support that. But I do think the weather and the people who are going to benefit of it is going to definitely cause the weather is going to be its own issue, but the people who are going to benefit from it is going to it's going to decrease even more, which would make it kind of useless.
Councilmember Simmons and then Councilmember Somerville.
So just real quick, I think, just like other things that COVID has brought about, this could be another change. To me, it's like a cultural thing. So if you travel to Europe, and I seem to do that a lot in the off season, actually dining outside in the middle of winter is kind of standard. They've got heaters, they give you a blanket even, and there's minimal kind of enclosure depending on where you're at. So it's just something we're not used to here, but it happens other places in the world and like with great frequency. So I think, again, this could just be another, maybe we'll see outdoor seating year round all the time now.
Can I
Mr.
provide a
Jacobs,
comment?
you want to respond to that?
In the RFL, it talks about Chicago and this crowdfunding idea that they had recently. Outdoor dining is, and winterizing outdoor dining is a challenge that we're seeing across the country with equally harsh climates to Michigan. And so, I don't want to inhibit the creativity of the business community. A lot of really innovative ideas have come out of the COVID crisis. And I think allowing for that and allowing folks to adapt. I don't know what it's going to look like, or if one business is going to participate, or if there could be many others that replicate similar designs. I know that it's rapidly evolving, and I think leaving the window open for that possibility is a smart business idea that shows we're a business-friendly community, and it doesn't cost us a great deal. So in lieu of having a lot of resources to bear in terms of helping businesses winterize or helping them renovate indoor spaces, I think this is low-hanging fruit.
Well, there has to be some kind of...
Councilmember Morgan, I had called on Councilmember
Okay,
Somerville.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, so I think igloos are a fine idea, especially under normal circumstances. I think they can be super fun and welcoming and draw people into the community. I do have concerns for all of the reasons that Councilmember Wilcoxon mentioned. And I actually I think using the igloos is actually like the least creative thing that businesses could do to make spaces outside viable for patrons. I mean, as Jennifer just mentioned, Councilmember Simmons just mentioned, like in other countries, there are heaters and blanket options. Now, I wouldn't recommend restaurants giving blankets out that are being reused by other people without being washed, but maybe people bringing their own blankets would be fine. But like, I actually am supportive of extending the sidewalk accessibility for businesses to keep their patios out there on city sidewalks. I don't really want to encourage the igloos. I just don't think that's a great idea. And I do think that it does create some barriers for folks walking and, walking downtown. And I know that where Bobcat Bonnie's is at, they have 3. So are those 3 igloos really going to make or break their winter? And I always have to add the fact that I was a server for 5 years, and I don't necessarily know that it would make me feel comfortable delivering food and beverages inside of an igloo. I know that there's a little bit of air ventilation, but I don't know. I have concerns about that. I'm down to extend the sidewalk availability. I wish it was actually open air though. I think that people could, dress warm if they wish to drink or eat outside, and heaters can actually keep you pretty warm. I mean, in Grand Rapids, they have the Winter Beer Fest every year and people wear snowsuits. I don't know. I have issues with the igloos. I think the igloos would be great if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic. I know that we can't tell businesses that they can't use igloos, but it would be nice if we could extend the sidewalks for everyone, but I don't really want to encourage the use of igloos. I'm probably going to support this, but I just want to be let it be known that I really don't agree with people eating or drinking inside of them. It's just, I think it's irresponsible, but I'm not a public health official.
Okay. Councilmember Morgan.
I'll pass until I get my thought back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments, Councilmember Jones Chance or Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, but I think Ms. Brown had her hand first.
Yeah, I've had
Okay.
my hand up for a long time.
I'm sorry, you're on the opposite screen.
Oh, okay, it's okay.
I have to slide over.
My
Okay.
question was, well, one, I was actually gonna kind of make a similar comment around like supporting about outdoor eating in other countries, because that does happen without igloos, like with open air, and I've experienced that myself. My other question though, is more so along the lines, so we know Bobcat Bonnie's is the only entity right now that is interested. So, okay, in the event that other businesses decide we figured out this innovative way that we also want to continue using the sidewalk or whatever, what is the process for that? Do they have to apply? Like, how do they get permission after this tonight happens and we allow Bobcat Bonnie's to do this? What is the process for other businesses to let us know that they would like to do this going forward? So how will we know who's doing that?
They could make no changes and they would be allowed to continue as is, but I think they would want to provide some protection from the winter elements to their customers. And so in that case, there would be an amendment to the Sidewalk Cafe application describing what it is they're looking to do. And then it would be approved if it were conceptually appropriate. And then when it was finally done, it would be approved by the building department to make sure it was safe.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councilmember Jones Chance, did you have something?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the igloos are concerned, I'm actually kind of surprised that the building department is letting these fly. And I only say that because, you know, a year or so ago at 734 Brewing, we had the idea of putting sun sails up to cover our patio space, which is on private property. And we were told that we could not without a building permit because it would be considered, having sun sails would be considered a roof, believe it or not. So I'm pretty surprised that this is even happening. But that doesn't appear to be a part of this resolution. I do think we maybe should consider having year-long permits for sidewalk seating if the only reason for not doing so really is snow plowing. We are responsible for clearing our sidewalks, and you know that doesn't go away by having sidewalk seating. And then as far as other businesses taking part, I think a lot of us will. We keep our, you know, the private patio, the part that's on private property, we keep that open year round, and people will clear snow off of seats out there, and they'll sit out there in the middle of winter drinking, you know, an already cold beer. So it's a thing. And unlike the street closures, which we don't take a part in, this would actually have an effect on some other businesses that maybe missed out from the street closures.
Okay. Councilmember Wilcoxon.
Yeah, I just have a question about the last sentence in this resolution. In terms of the timing, it says once the new application window for 2020 is set to begin. So if we're extending this, I read this initially as this is, you know, extending what we already have until 2020, but or 2021. When would the new application window normally start?
I think it's April is when we really start to get those applications, maybe a little bit earlier for some people who are really on the ball. But April, I think, is when we see the majority of them. And so my proposal would be to run them through, I'm sorry about it not being totally clear in the language here, to run it through when we open up the next application window. So, you know, I think giving a little bit of a runway here, the end of May is appropriate to, and then if you don't fill out that 2020 application and submit it by the end of May, like your 2020 permit is no longer valid. But having a little bit of overlap between the window opens up and when we would say, hey, this isn't right because you didn't apply for the new application year.
Got it. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, did your thought come back, Councilmember Morgan?
brain doesn't work that way, Mayor. I wish it did.
Okay.
It's gone. But
Okay.
something interesting to say next round. Thank you so much, Jacob. I appreciate you, Mr. Jacobs.
Any other comments from any other council people? Okay. I have some of the same thoughts that Councilmember Wilcoxon expressed at first and Councilmember Somerville also. I would really want to see and know what the health department has to say about the igloos. I even looked at them this summer. I had lunch with someone down at Bobcat Bonnie's, and we were sitting at a table outside of the igloo, but it just seems like that you're kind of, even with ventilation, it still seems like you're in such of an enclosed space. And again, for the, on behalf of the servers also going in, even though they're masked, but the people inside are not. And I would like to know what the public health department says about the igloos before I could really support that. I am fully in support of whatever we can do to help our businesses. We want our businesses to be sustained, and not just sustained, but we want them to also be profitable as much as possible during this time and this season that we're kind of muddling through and learning our way as we go. But I just have health concerns about the igloos. I do. And also with the igloos on the sidewalk, would there still be, once we do get snow, it seems to me the snow would have to be completely removed, not just shoveled, but it would not even be able to be up against the building in order to really provide enough space for pedestrians to walk comfortably down the street. As we were talking, I would see possibly a, and what I guess it would be what Councilmember Jones-Chance said, that it would be like a roof, but it would be over and on the side, everything open on the sidewalk, that, and with the heaters, I would certainly agree with that. Seeing no problem with that at all, that so that it's open, there's lots of ventilation, and you could even still have the safe distancing. I haven't been in one of the igloos. How many people will they hold?
3 or 4.
3 or 4? Okay. But I still would like to know what public health has to say about them. Councilmember Jones-Chance.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I'm clear, but the igloo portion or any other kind of enclosure is not being considered here. Is that correct? This is just to extend the sidewalk permits.
Exactly, and I could confer with the health department for guidance, but the decision at hand here isn't regulating the specific outdoor dining configuration, just whether you'll allow it beyond the current deadline.
Yeah, I mean, and we would definitely not allow any of our staff to go into those. It just seems kind of gross. But again, I'm really surprised that this is being allowed by the building department, and that's only, maybe this is a case of different rules for different people, but just based on my experience, it seems really odd.
Okay. Councilmember Somerville.
Yeah, so would it be possible, like obviously this is all going to be a case-by-case basis. Maybe this needs to be a resolution at a different council meeting, but I would really like to get some feedback from the health department, and once they provide that feedback, whether or not they say that this, like what they rate this as in terms of safety on the COVID scale, I think it would be appropriate if once we have that information from them, if businesses are doing this, I think that that needs to be indicated somewhere visible to patrons and also on our city website and things like that, because I don't want to mislead people into thinking that this is a safer cigarette
The problem is we can ask the health department to provide that kind of evaluation, but because of liability concerns, I doubt very much that they would make definitive statements of rating the health safety of this enclosure in comparison to anything else. It's just a really tough legal position.
Well, then, yeah, maybe the city could just say, this does not mean it's a safer dining option. I don't know. I just want some sort of like label
Disclaimer
on this that says this does not mean it is safer, because it's not.
And I didn't quite understand what you were saying. I see you, Councilmember Morgan. I didn't quite understand what you were saying about the health department not wanting to make a statement.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they would want to make a definitive evaluation like that about this particular outdoor dining option. We can request that they provide an evaluation or guidance on it. But if that's not something that they typically do, you're asking them to go outside of a policy and protocol and do something additional, something special beyond what they currently do, evaluating and providing a rating to compare outdoor cafes or these revised winterized outdoor cafes. I mean, that's just not something I think they typically do. And we could request that they make that recommendation or provide that evaluation. But opting in the interest of not wanting the liability, they may choose not to do that. And so that's my concern, is that we close the window on this altogether, because we're asking for some special condition, kind of like asking for a special election, just to find out that they're not willing to do that.
Okay, I still think we need to consult them. Councilmember Morgan.
Thank you for all the information from people saying, the different outdoor dining experiences that people can share, which just lets me know whether here or abroad, they have a plethora of options for people to enjoy outside dining. And I guess with Bobcat Bonnie's, that's just one, being in those spherical structures. So to Mayor's point, even if the health department doesn't want to definitively, to avoid legal ramifications, they don't want to say what's healthy and what not. Again, there has to be a way to determine some of these structures, since this is where we move into the future creatively, to have people dine outside. They have to have a way to rate them, how functional they are, how healthy they are, how sustainable they are. There has to be ways to determine which structures outside in the elements are viable or not. There has to be. Now, I don't know if the health department is the one to say this is at a B+ rating versus a D- rating based on airflow and all the other dynamics. But I don't believe that there's no way to determine what's healthy and what's not. And I don't know the people who job it is to make that determination, but I think it's possible. And I do believe what Ms. Somerville said, there has to be at least a disclaimer, because if these things do exist, we can't co-sign for them, but we can't condone them either, to my knowledge. So I do think there has to be some disclaimer to say that this doesn't decrease the chances of COVID, because that's just clearly what it doesn't do. So I just wonder if there are models, different settings, different ways, different structures, and then there has to be some system to determine how effective they can be, whether it's based on health or structure wise. So that's my opinion. I don't know that to be true.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes.
So, y'all, there's a pandemic going on. And I don't know that the health department really has time to go and rate igloos right now. But I really believe in common sense as well. And people have to make a choice, right? So, the public health officials have said, hey, you can have restaurants open, you can do certain things with stores at this percentage of people or occupancy. So, here we've got this particular restaurant deciding that igloos is the way they want to go and do. Some other restaurant might go with heaters and here's your blanket, whatever. But we're not asked to give it the blessing. We're not being asked to tell people it's safe. That's not what we're asked to do. We're just being asked right now, are we going to extend this, through beyond the season that it normally is? Is that correct, Chris? Right. So that's all we're being asked to do. So there's nothing the city's not saying, this will keep you safe or whatever. And people have to use their common sense and the information they have, you know, from the public health officials and whatever, and make their own choice. I personally am not comfortable eating in restaurants right now. So I go do carry out or whatever. But honestly, I think I might be a little more comfortable sitting in an igloo or outdoors in the winter, whatever. But that's my choice. Okay. So are we going to extend this or not? I think that's like, we're getting kind of, you know, out, you know, off on some other stuff. It's just really simple. Are we going to extend this?
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you. And I smile, Councilmember Simmons, because I had a conversation with someone just a couple of days ago about the death and the obituary of Common Sense, having read that several years ago. So, but people do have to make their own decisions, and I know that we're voting on the extension, but I think that the options too are part of that. I mean, I think that those would probably come back to us sometime or other. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, I can't see you. Do you have any questions or comments?
No additional at this time.
Okay, thank you. Clerk Hellenga, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Come back to me, Andrew, please.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes,
motion carries unanimously.
reluctantly.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, council, the next item on the agenda is resolution 2020-226, resolved by the council of the city of Ypsilanti, whereas the city of Ypsilanti has been successfully selling city-owned residential properties under its property disposition program since 2016. And whereas the program allows residents to build equity in their neighborhoods and provide tax revenue while eliminating the cost of maintenance for the city. And whereas the two properties identified as 440 2nd Avenue and 448 South Huron Street meet the qualifications of a residential lot to be sold under the property disposition program. Now therefore be it resolved that the Ypsilanti City Council approves the addition of 440 2nd Avenue and 448 South Huron Street to the residential lot program to be sold per the property disposition policy.
So moved.
Motion.
Or
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Meyers or Mr. Jacobs, who's going to present on this?
That's me, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
The two properties identified, 448 South Huron may sound familiar. That is the property that we recently demolished a house on. It is now a clean green field that can be built on. And 442nd Avenue is a property down there south of Michigan Avenue in the NEZ. And that in particular has a real opportunity for some tax savings and tax abatement if somebody were to buy it and build on it. I think that's a very real possibility given how big the lot is. And so I have already received an application for the 448 South Huron property, and I suspect we will very quickly receive an application for the 442nd Avenue. This program's been very successful since 2016. I think about 24 properties have been sold under that program. And so this is just adding more properties that we've come into acquisition of under that program for the same motivations, elimination of the cost of maintenance, added tax revenue, and building equity in the neighborhoods, and offering those residential lots first to the adjoining properties for practically little to no cost at all, minus the closing fees. And so, like I said, it's been really popular. We get calls all the time about properties for sale under the program, and currently we have none to offer. So this would put 2 more back on that program.
Questions, comments? Councilmember Jones Chance.
Yes, when we're offering these to adjacent properties first, is there any consideration given to whether or not those adjacent properties are owner occupied?
No, I'm just reading through here. The policy is spelled out in the RFL. That's the majority of the content here is directly from that policy. So preference of sale shall be given to the adjoining property owners that own and have homestead status on the adjoining parcel. That's qualification number 1.
I was going to say that was when the NEZ was first presented. That was a requirement for the adjacent person. Councilmember Morgan.
And that's a wonderful thing that the people adjacent get first dibs. After, barring, let's say those people who adjacent can't afford it or opt out, who's second in line? Is there a random choice, or how does that happen if those people opt out of purchasing?
After options for side lot sales have been explored, parcels may be sold to any interested party, meeting the following conditions. The purchaser agrees the property is to be developed. It will be maintained as a homestead use. They have to be current on all property taxes and have no outstanding tickets or property violations. And they agree to repair or restore any structure to habitable conditions within 1 year purchase. Should they fail to meet the requirements, the city would be able to reclaim the property within the first year at the expense of the purchaser.
Okay. What's the price determination? So after you level it, you just come to it's a standard price that you guys come up with once the property's been demolished. And so this is my own, I want to know, since 2016, since this has been available, and it seems like the terms have been the same, have there been trends of the buyers? Like, what's the demographics of the buyers in the last 4 years for the properties that have been bought? I'm interested in knowing if the people who live in those areas are benefiting from that, or if people who, say if I live next door and I couldn't afford it, if anybody else is coming in buying them. I just want to know over the last, how many properties you said? It was 26 of these?
So there are about 24 since 2016.
24. Yeah,
I'd have to look at all of the info, and I don't want to give you incorrect info, but I know.
Yeah. You can just follow up with me, but I just want to know, again, I know first dibs, but then if those people can't, whoever those South Side people are, whoever, if they can't afford those, I just want to know who's coming in and buying them up. And they have to be a citizen of Ypsilanti to buy those?
They do not have to be a current property owner or resident to
Not good.
So yeah, it's not a first come first served.
I would really like to know who has obtained some of that property. It don't have to be specifics, but I'm interested because, again, theoretically, what you're saying, if there were 24 properties and if the people next door couldn't buy it, potentially somebody from Rochester, New York could own some of those, or somebody from Belleville. Is that correct? As long as they meet the needs. And
they would have, sorry, council member, they would have to maintain homestead status, so they couldn't rent the property out. It wouldn't make a lot of sense for somebody from Rochester to buy one of these properties and then not have homestead.
No, they'll build it and live in it. They can build it, right? They can build something on it. And yeah, so it's ownership. It's definitely accruing wealth. So I could imagine why somebody outside the city would use it as a beneficial commercial property. I mean, as a property to build wealth. I definitely can see that. I just wanted to know if there were any stipulations from people benefiting from this great offer if you had to be here in the city of Ypsilanti. And it doesn't seem like that's part of it. But
not being a current resident, that's not a requirement. I will say, I think between 1/4 and half of the properties sold were sold to the adjoining property owners.
That's good to know.
Very commonly, used for that.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. No further questions, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Council members Wilcoxon.
Thank you. I'm looking at the property at 440. And it's kind of interesting that I don't know what the square footage of these two different properties are, but if the price is set at $1,000, Mr. Morgan makes a good point. It's like if the adjoining property owners don't take advantage of this, that's cheap property. Is there anything in the previous program or previous execution of the program that this was offered at a lower price, lower than market value price to the adjoining property owners, and then have it go to market value for anybody outside?
That would be a decision at the will of council to change the residential lot program currently as adopted. That's not how it's evaluated. It's not how prices are determined. It's a flat rate, either $500, which is the closing costs, and $1 for the property if you're an adjoining property owner, or $1,000 plus $500 for the closing costs if you're not, and if you meet all the other qualifications. So council could choose to look at amending that program, but as adopted, that's how we evaluate it, and that's how the price is set.
That's an interesting property at 440. I mean, because it so dwarfs the two adjacent properties, and I think the other properties that we've looked at previously, it kind of made sense. There was a single lot that was similar in size to the adjoining properties, but this is just observation. It's kind of strange, but I am curious about the secondary clause in this in terms of somebody not in the adjoining property paying market value for it. But I understand that hasn't been the program, so that's fine.
That prevents them from selling it?
What was that, city manager?
Is there anything that would prohibit the property owner from selling it once they purchased it?
Nope, and that comment has been received the last time we talked about this as well. This is some folks haven't really done anything with the properties, and is there anything to prevent them from selling it for more than they bought it for? That's not the case.
Chris, you mentioned something about $1. Say that again. You mentioned something about $1.
It's $1 if you're an adjoining property owner, and $500 is typical closing costs.
So stop. Hold on. Wait. You mean
the purchase price is $1.
You mean wait. So next door to someone, if they have an adjoining property, they could pay $1 and $500 closing costs. And why doesn't everybody who have a parcel next door to them own it then? I don't understand. You mean it's $500 that they can't come up with to own what's next to them, and they can build something that would build equity and wealth for their family? I don't understand.
It's a great opportunity, and I think the program was designed to offer that opportunity. I can't speak to why not everyone is taking advantage of it.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't understand. Like, so I guess there'll need to be a payment program for $500, but I don't know how you would word that to make it even more lucrative than what it is. Like, as opposed to, then that lets me know, obviously, there are certain families who doesn't have $500 closing costs, which is probably one of the poverty itself is probably one of the things that's offsetting the opportunity. It costs more to be poor. I don't understand how the city isn't. I don't know. And if you're that poor, perhaps you can't build on it and make equity. I don't know, because I'm not a homeowner, but I'm just curious about that $1. I'll borrow that, I guess, unless you have to know where the funds come from.
So
a
couple notes. The lower rate is to keep it owner occupied. One reason you might not is because it would increase your taxes, or you don't want it. It increases the maintenance costs. There are some valid reasons for why you just might not be interested in the trouble of it.
And Councilmember Morgan, that was one of the reasons I was told before, when we were really pushing the NEZ, was that some people said that they couldn't afford the added taxes, and which also shows the poverty rate. So, okay.
Well, I have no further questions. Thank you so much for explaining that to me, Mr. Jacobs.
Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Wilcoxon.
I'm stuck on this property flipping. You know, and this, I remember this conversation when this came up previously. And so it's like, so why don't we have a mechanism to keep people from buying these for $1,000 and selling them for whatever the market value is?
Well, we can certainly amend it.
Well, I guess I would, in that case, I would like to table this to come up with that specific language.
I guess I see Mr. Meyers' hands. Are you going to tell me that we can't amend this?
No, you can amend anything you want. I guess the one thing that's keeping people from not being able to flip, because we've had a few people try and it's gone really unsuccessfully. And the reason for it is the homeowner occupied status. So by that deed restriction, no one has been able to sell any of these properties for what they thought they would be able to. So we've had about 2 or 3 people try to flip, and it hasn't really gone anywhere, mainly because we require it to be homesteaded, which we inform everyone greatly every time they apply, and then they think it goes away after a year, which it does not. It's a forever deed restriction.
So in order for them to sell the property, they would have to build a home on it. If it's vacant, they would have to build a home on it, and then they could sell it.
They could sell it as long as it was homeowner occupied. You could never rent that house. The city put a restriction on the deed.
Right. So, but for them to just buy the property and not build anything and then sell it.
Yeah.
That's a possibility?
It's a possibility, but the 2 people that have tried have not been successful at all because of that deed restriction. And every person that wants to buy them wants to buy it for rental property, which they cannot do. And so that's why it's not as concerning for the flippers, because it in every single case of all of the lots we sold, none of them have been flipped, and the people still own them and are trying to figure out what to do with them. So,
and they're still paying taxes on them.
Well, they're at least in the process of foreclosure, which is
so then we get them back, right?
Well, it'll be sold, but that deed restriction is not going anywhere.
Right.
That's the benefit is it cannot be used for rental housing.
Okay.
Sorry to step on your toes, Christopher.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing no questions or comments, is everyone ready for the vote? Councilmember Somerville, did your hand go up?
It was just a thumbs up.
Oh, okay. All right. Clerk Hellenga, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Richardson,
Come back to me, please.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Council, on to the next item, resolution number 2020-227. It is resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti that whereas the United States of America, the state of Michigan, and especially the city of Ypsilanti have been in a state of medical emergency because of COVID-19 pandemic, and whereas the Michigan Open Meetings Act was amended by SB-1108 in response to said medical emergency to allow for virtual meetings of public bodies, and whereas SB-1108 in section 3.2 requires the public body to establish procedures for virtual meetings in accordance with the OMA. Now, therefore, the following procedures are established in accordance with SB-1108 for all meetings of Ypsilanti City public bodies, including City Council and all city boards and commissions. 1, all meetings shall comply with the OMA. 2, all meetings shall be held in person except as stated below. 3, all meetings shall allow two-way communication with the public. 4, all meetings shall be Zoom virtual meetings until December 31st, 2020. 5, all actions of Ypsilanti City Council at Zoom virtual meetings before this date are approved and ratified. 6, meetings from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021 may be Zoom virtual meetings for reasons specified in OMA, including military duty, a medical condition, or statewide or local state of emergency or state of disaster that would risk personal health or safety of the members of the public and or the public body if the meeting were held in person. 7, any member of the public body attending the meeting virtually from a location outside the state of Michigan for any reason other than medical shall publicly announce the fact at the beginning of the meeting, and the announcement shall be included in the meeting minutes. 8, all members shall give the public information on how to contact the member, whether meeting in person or remotely, sufficiently in time to allow comment before any virtual meeting. Such notice be given by the city clerk. 9, notice of the Zoom virtual meeting must be posted on the City of Ypsilanti website in addition to other required notices. The notice must include the following: why the meeting is held electronically, how members of the public may participate in the meeting, how members of the public may contact members of the public body to provide input or ask questions about business to come before the public body in the meeting. D, a copy of the meeting agenda posted at least 2 hours before the meeting. 10, public comment must be allowed at each public meeting except for closed meetings. A, public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. B, time may not be shared or accumulated. C, groups are encouraged to make public comment with a spokesperson for the group. D, public comment is encouraged by written comments delivered to the city clerk. E, persons providing public comment will be encouraged but not required to provide name and address for purpose of the meeting minutes. 11, Ypsilanti City Council meeting shall be hosted by the Ypsilanti City Clerk or designee.
So move.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Questions, comments? Clerk Hellenga, in reading that, I saw December 31st. I was on a meeting yesterday morning with some representatives, and it was said that it's there was a question about whether ending December 11th or December 31st. And the answer from one of the representatives was December 11th. So what, and then I'm reading this, it said the 31st. Is there a clear answer on that?
December 31st is listed in the bill.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Council, the next item on the agenda is a discussion regarding speeding in city neighborhoods.
Is there a time allotted for this discussion, Mayor?
15 minutes.
Yes. No longer than 15 minutes, and shorter if we can do that.
Maybe that's my cue. I asked that this be put on the agenda after receiving a lot of citizen complaints about some drag racing car clubs and things like that going on. I had a discussion with Councilmember Brown, the mayor, city manager, chief of police, Ron Akers, Bonnie Wessler, about this the other day. It seems like there are a lot of short-term solutions being contemplated. I think maybe in the future it would be a good idea for council to work with staff on some more permanent and long-term holistic solutions to traffic calming. I don't know that we need to go like full-blown Amsterdam or anything, but maybe we ought to move in that direction.
Okay. Councilmember Simmons and then Somerville.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think every ward in this city has their areas where there's a lot of speeding. I mean, in different neighborhoods, cut through streets, whatnot. And I think we have to start to try to get more creative than just speed bumps. You know, I think there is some, you know, different ways that maybe we can do some things. I appreciate that Mr. Akers and his crew have the, you know, rotating kind of speed signs that they place around. And I think they do help to the extent they can. But, you know, the one thing is that we need, you know, it needs to be, you know, novel. And after a while, people get acclimated, you know, so, you know, we have to have some things, I think that I don't know, I would like to have a more of a discussion as Mr. Jones Chance mentioned, to see how can we get more creative and find sustainable solutions. Because I also don't think that it's, enforcement, unfortunately, is another pretty effective tool, but I don't know that we have necessarily the full bandwidth to do that. And I don't know that that's what people necessarily want either. The sad thing is that in a lot of the neighborhoods and whatnot, it's the people who live there too that are often the ones who are speeding. So challenges, we have it over in Ward 2 as well, and I'd like to try to find solutions that are more long-term.
Thank you. Any other question or comment? Councilmember Morgan.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Somerville, was your
You're
hand
good.
up
You can go
before?
first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand.
I know studies have been done. So I know that there has to be some kind of data that shows where the high points of where speeding is happening the most and what locations, and then try to attempt to target around the data and the research, whether, and like I know some places, I don't want to be punitive, but I do know certain places where they do those, they stand outside with those, you see them, like they have these operations where they're doing like a sting operation for speeding, just like, and that's a calming measure. I don't want to be punitive, but when there's people out there who actually, I think I've been involved in one where you're standing next to the officer and he kind of tell people, then they just call, come get you. Like at least have to be a presence, at least a presence of enforcement, even though if it's not all the time. And I do agree with Councilwoman Simmons that it is a lot of the people within those very own neighborhoods that do the speeding. So we do have to get creative, but I do think like the data does start by telling us where those places and times of the highest peak of these drag races. I'm sure that's at night mainly. I'm sure after midnight, perhaps, I don't know. But I would like to see some of that information that would help us be more creative with our traffic calming strategies.
And Councilmember Somerville, I'm sorry, I had called on you to come after.
Oh no, that's okay. Yeah, the very first council meeting that I was at, we actually approved speed humps for 2 different areas. And I feel like off and on for like almost a year and a half, like every so often someone brings up complaints, and I get a lot of complaints in Ward 3. I see all the complaints that people have over in Ward 1 and Ward 2 often on Facebook. So obviously I think the easiest way to describe the city is that it's designed in a way where cars just speed in and out. They just zip in and out off of 94 to get to Ann Arbor or Belleville. And it creates like the culture, the way that people drive. I have noticed on the little stretch of Huron and Cross Street where MDOT installed the little, oh man, I can never remember the name of the
Bollard.
pieces that, what was that?
Bollard.
Sure. That helped, but part of the problem on Cross Street, the center pieces, the yellow pieces that were in the very middle of the crosswalk, like within 48 hours had been knocked over, which in my opinion, just like proves that people are speeding too fast on Cross, and that's where students cross the street to get to campus, and that's where families cross the street with their kids. There are a lot of, I don't know. I mean, even in front of like the Riverside Art Center, under normal circumstances, people utilize that space a lot. Corner Health Center's right there, and it's really dangerous to cross the street right there. And they did install those things at that crosswalk too, and then they were also kind of within a few days hit and not all there. So I don't know. I've been talking with MDOT too for like over a year to try to figure out what we can do at Huron on Cross. The slip lanes create more speeding. So yeah, I'm ready to fully make the speeding issue. We're not going to be able to like fully resolve that, but there are a lot of things that we can do. And I know part of the traffic calming that will be integrated over the next 2 to 3 years is going to help a little bit, but like the slip lanes need to go.
Okay, Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, we talked a lot about this in our small meeting earlier. Wow, that was not earlier. That was yesterday.
Today.
Man, time just, oh man. Anyway, that was yesterday. But what I will say is that in talking with with staff, we know that this has been an ongoing issue for many moons, many years. My entire time on council, there has been from one point or another complaints at all times about speeding across the city. And so what I'm optimistic about is that having Ms. Wessler and Ron and the chief looking into some more, innovative like mechanisms that we can use that can assist us within our means as well, because we know that, again, like Councilmember Somerville said, we can't just stop it completely. That's just never going to happen. But we can figure out what we can do within the city to really help just kind of mediate some of the issues, in particular, just in the neighborhoods. Specifically for me, on the main streets it's bad too, but when you're seeing the speeding and you're seeing the racing down these residential streets, that's extremely dangerous. There's children that play outside, in the summer and in the fall. I've seen moments where very scary and really close calls of things happening. And so as much that we can do with enforcement, again, different mechanisms to try to alleviate this, I'm fully supportive of us having further discussion and kind of delving deeper into it once they have some ideas, because the sooner the better, honestly.
I agree. Councilmember Morgan.
I just want to note for the record, those mechanisms, the margin for error is so small with those things. Now, it could be speeding, but they're so small. I have a very small car, and I got
If you're
a
going the
Cobalt.
speed limit, you won't hit them.
No, I'm saying I'm going 10 below the speed limit. I got both hands on the wheel, nervous.
10 and 2.
You should be paying attention.
All right.
While you're driving.
We have to. The margin of error is so small. I'm just saying. If you are speeding and you careless, you're gonna hit one. But if you're going slow and you don't have steady hands, you're gonna hit one. I'm just saying. It's like maybe 2 inches on each side of the car. It's not that much space. So I'm just saying, for all you speeders or you guys with you shaky hands, it's some drama out there. Be careful. Be careful. There's a lot of speeding going on. Just saying, man. So it's not all speeders. That's all I'm saying. It could.
Councilmember Wilcoxon.
I'm just imagining Mr. Morgan driving up Cross Street. It's just like old man hunched over the wheel. Yeah, this has been a problem for quite some time, but it has gotten significantly worse. When you see somebody doing 70 miles an hour through a residential neighborhood in the middle of the day, it's not at night, it's not, it is the middle of the day going 70 miles an hour through a stop sign on a residential street is just, it's insane, and so I'm really, looking forward to, I've thought about this problem a lot, and I've encouraged people in the neighborhoods to put in petitions for speed bumps, and it's not very creative, but it is an effective tool. once you look at the entire city and the prevalence of this problem, if you start putting in those speed bumps, that's a huge budget. You know, even the temporary ones, you know, and then so then when you take them out in the winter, that's an interesting thing. You know, the traffic calming measures that have been used. I mean, you know, Congress just got repaved and they had bump outs and things like that. Doesn't matter. Doesn't stop people at all. There's still people blowing through stop signs at 40 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour going down there. And you know, the usual thinking that traffic engineers have for this is not working because, you know, it's, you know, you can channel people down, but once they get used to it, they're just going to blow through them anyway. So I think we really have to come up with some more interesting ideas. I know there's Mike lives in Normal Park, works for MDOT, and I'd really like to tap him for some ideas on how to deal with this.
Okay. Councilmember Jones Chance.
Yeah, so a lot of the discussion yesterday, there were some really innovative solutions, but they were all short term. So maybe maybe we do go, you know, full blown Amsterdam or something like that. And maybe this takes 10, 20, 30 years. But we may want to consider changing what vehicles or modes of transportation we prioritize, packing commuter cars, you know, in a certain area, packing public transit on its own routes, and prioritizing pedestrians or bicyclists in different areas. Maybe we shut down some streets with to cars with, you know, collapsible bollards or whatever. But you know, it might be time to sort of reimagine how we do this because we can't really afford to have speed bumps on every street, which is probably where they're needed. It'd be nice to slow down the people with the nicer, faster cars. I'm sure they'd slow down for those, but I also see a lot of them just going around. So, you know, they'll take another street, and we can't put them everywhere. So I think we do need permanent solutions, and maybe this is a multi-decade kind of project, but best time to plant an oak tree is right now.
Okay, Clerk Hellenga, how are we on time?
Just under 15 minutes.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything that they want to say? I'd like to pick up on the suggestion that Mayor Pro Tem had, and that was to refer this to Ms. Wessler, the chief, and to Mr. Akers, and ask them to see what they could, to work on this and see if they could come up with anything. I would like to say that this is not a problem that is unique to Ypsilanti. Every person that I talk to that's in city government around the state, they're having the exact same problem. People are just speeding, and where they're going, I don't know. I mean, you know, I know just a few days ago, a couple of weeks ago, I guess it was, that the young lady who was actually visiting next door, I was outside talking with family, and she went up and down my block I know she had to be doing 50 from the corner of First to the corner of Second, and going nowhere. So, and I know that happens all the time, but I do recommend if there is agreement to refer this to Ms. Wessler and Mr. Akers and the chief and whoever else needs to be in that group, to see if they can come up with some innovative ways that we can handle this. Councilmember Morgan, I saw your hand.
I was just thinking, like, I don't want to be punitive, and even though we do have the death penalty, people still commit crime. You know, I do think crime.
Not Michigan.
Well, amen. Okay, but I do think like these are things that's going to be around as long as, you know, time persists. And so if we don't have like council member Jones Chance, if we don't have long-term solutions, we got to find at least interim durable solutions to maintain, because it's going to be like a multi-decade planning. So I do think, again, I don't want to say harsher stipulations, but again, with loss of life and things of the potential, we have to make it at least equal to the consequence of hurting somebody or damaging property. So I think it's up to us to find some clever ways, but stiffer ways to, unless we catch somebody in the act also. So make an example out of people. Again, this is society here. We want to keep everything in the straight and narrow. And I don't want to be too punitive, but we definitely want to not, again, lose life in the process of finding out what we're doing.
Thank you. Okay. Not seeing any hand. Oops. Are we still under 15, clerk?
No, you're over 15 now.
We're over 15? Okay. Well, let's move on to the next item. The next issue, unless it's something very, very revolutionary and revelation. Did you get a good revelation, Councilman Wilcoxon? If so,
I'm just feeding off of Brian's comment. I think we go Amsterdam on it. You know, it's like just get rid of the vehicles, get rid of the cars altogether, and let people walk and bike.
Yeah, it's not really good for everyone.
well, anyway, we're over our 15, so that's for next time. Okay.
All right, the next item on the agenda is discussion regarding issues facing downtown businesses as a result of housing insecurity.
I guess that's me again. It really wasn't meant to be about the businesses, but I guess they are involved. So I've been hearing a lot in different business groups, in the Downtown Association as well, about the drunkenness, and there are a lot of issues, and I would like at some point to have a conversation with Ms. Brown and the Ward 3 folks to see if we can do something on either side of Michigan Ave. My fear is that this is going to reach a point where the people who have housing insecurity or addiction problems are not going to be treated like people. And we're coming up on the colder months. To my knowledge, this year, there is not going to be a warming center in Ypsi. I don't think Riverside Art Center is doing that this year. I know there's someone from the Shelter Association actively hoping to convince them. But this is going to be an issue, and it's going to be an issue for some of our most vulnerable residents. I hope someone's got some ideas because I'm about out of them. Yeah, I just don't want this to reach a tipping point where we start kicking people who are already pretty down.
Any other questions, comment? Councilmember Morgan.
I noticed in most cities, there is an undefined space for where homeless people gather, or people who have under home housed. Like it's always places where they gather and they're allowed to be there, where there's not like it's a disturbance or something. And Detroit is down like off between Woodward and Mack area, off a Second and Cass, and it's like a corridor. It's just like the city almost allows this section of the city for people who make makeshift homes, and it's not ideal, but there has to be certain places where they can be allowed to be. because whether they have a home or not. Like I know some places when things were open, the library, the bus station. So there has to be some place carved out if it's manageable, that they can roam within the space and feel human in society without being pushed along to the next cement block. So I don't know what that looks like, but I think like Brian said, we have to find a way. They're already down and and marginalized, and so we don't want to do more to heap onto those troubles. But again, I can understand with the businesses having objectives and goals to meet, how that can interfere with that. So I'm torn, but I do think there needs to be some space for people who are not readily accepted for where their plight is to exist. And so I don't know what that looks like.
Okay. Councilmember Somerville.
Yeah, a few things. I think the most important thing about this discussion and the issue that was presented, I mean, we need to keep in mind that we shouldn't be criminalizing people for their circumstances with regard to poverty and addiction. I know that we were in the process of hiring a social worker. I'm not sure what the status of that is, but that would be this year, given the pandemic, it would be nice to have an update on where we're at with the hiring for that. And then if we haven't gotten there yet and we're still lagging, it would be good maybe to reach out to the county to try to get some advice from community mental health. I mean, the problem is that people are experiencing extreme poverty and addiction. So I know that the chief in the springtime issued a statement that that the police department would not be criminalizing or like messing with encampments. I hope that's still the case. I think it should still be. I don't think there was an expiration date on that. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. But in terms of any activity downtown in our business districts, I think the best thing that we can do is make sure people are aware of the resources available to them. I think the last thing that we should be steering away from criminalizing that. That's no one's fault. So I don't know. I think I'm hoping to get an update on the social worker situation. That was a big part of our goal setting last year, and everybody in both the departments and on council seemed really supportive of that. So it would be nice to see that into play. I know that without the warming center, which is just during regular business hours anyways, that is during daytime hours a problem. I don't know what we can do for a solution for that, because the city's not equipped at the current state, not that I'm aware of, to run a warming center. But it would, I think our priority should be to make sure that the police department's not criminalizing people for poverty. So issues of homelessness and addiction, those are all intertwined. So that's where my concerns are. If businesses are having issues, maybe we need to come up with some tips and, tips for them on how to best respond. But I don't know, that those are my suggestions. I think we need to utilize the social worker that we've set aside funding for. And if we were not there yet, we should be using partners within the county.
City Manager McMullen, can you give us an update on where we are with hiring a social worker?
Sure. Actually, that is on our radar, and we've been talking about that consistently, especially with us talking about the community policing strategy and the profile for that. So we're trying, where it looks like we're at right now is probably we're going to be coming back to City Council asking for an amendment to that line item. We originally budgeted for a part-time social worker, and because of the things that we're hearing from the community policing portion and even this, we're pretty sure that we're going to need a part-time, not a part-time person, but a full-time person. So that's why we have not advertised it and have not posted it, because it was still being formulated what this person would actually be doing. So that is in the works, and we are talking about that consistently. We have one more community policing forum. So we're ready to go after that, but I did write that down because we want to make sure we have the full scope or, of what this person is going to be responsible for doing. And then we will take that description and couple it with some things for EMU social work candidates looking for things to do. But we want to make sure we heard all of these things. So it's good that you're saying that at this time so that we can have a posting that's accurate.
Awesome.
Okay. All right, thank you. Clerk Hellenga, where are we on our discussion time?
You have 4 minutes.
Okay. Councilmember Simmons, I can't see you. Is your hand up? Okay, Councilmember Jones-Chance.
Yeah, I should have maybe mentioned this, but I'm not as plugged in to DDA as I once was, but there may be some funds available or being reallocated to some kind of a social work person. And because of the way the budget works, it might just be for downtown. And I don't know if they're open to doing something in tandem with the city as far as sharing costs. And maybe Christopher Jacobs has some idea of what that is. I had a discussion with someone about it the other day, and I'm not 100% clear on it, but it is something that it sounds like the DDA is also thinking about, because they have some issues of people, defecating in the alleys and relieving themselves on buildings. I was on a call with a business owner on Washington Street, and in the middle of the Zoom call, someone was, throwing up on her door, or, obviously high or drunk. She came back in tears because she didn't want to call the police. And it doesn't seem to be letting up. So I don't know if Christopher has anything about the DDA or if there even is a plan yet, but it sounded to me like there was something possibly in the works.
Mr. Jacobs, did you have a response to that?
It's a perennial challenge. And the DDA has recently considered the refund from the time that it did not have a DDA officer to explore alternative options, like helping the city meet its gap funding, to have somebody dedicated to better meeting the mental health and social challenges that present themselves, as opposed to policing solutions. And so that's something that we're talking about in our strategic plan. There is a real push to look at how we can better meet the needs of all, including that population downtown. And so, yeah, nothing that I can say definitive in terms of a plan, but it's something that we're worth exploring with the city.
Okay. Clerk Hellenga, how are we on time?
You have 1 minute.
Okay, Councilmember Somerville.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that when we're having these conversations that we're keeping in mind that certain people can be addicted to drugs and be drunk in public and urinate in public, and businesses don't react to them the same way that they do when people who are housing insecure addicts are in public reacting the same way. So I think it's important for us to keep it in mind that there's a group that we're talking about right now, but there are other people in our city who go in and out of businesses that behave in similar ways, but they're not the ones that are, that we're talking about. So I think that's important. We're not going to have a social worker go up to somebody who comes out of a bar after drinking for 5 hours in the same way that we would with somebody who's sitting on the corner with a fifth of alcohol. So just want to draw that connection, because I think it's important that we're not policing one group of people over other people who are spending money inside of our businesses. They're doing the same thing.
Okay, thank you. All right. Is it very quick? because we're over our 15 minutes.
I'm confused by that last comment, but I'll follow up with Ms. Somerville afterwards about that.
Okay. It's 9:30 and we still have a little bit to go on our agenda. You know, Clerk Hellenga, move us on, please. Those were both good discussions.
The next item on the agenda is liaison reports. The first report is SEMCOG.
SEMCOG had a 2-day what they called a homecoming seminar type this past Thursday and Friday. And unfortunately, I was not able to attend either day, but it was very similar. They had sessions. I think there were about 4 sessions on Thursday and 4 on Friday, 3 on Friday. Also with SEMCOG, there's now a new executive director, and Kathleen Lameko retired as of Thursday, and the assistant director that was there was promoted, and I don't have her name in front of me, and I did not, she was not, for me, she was not as well known as Kathleen was before Kathleen was promoted. So, but that is the report from SEMCOG. I've been trying to forward the webinars and on the updates to everyone as I get them. So.
The next liaison report is Watts.
Yeah, so we were supposed to have a meeting this month, but because of the kind of toss-up about the Open Meetings Act, they actually had to cancel the meeting. So we're set to meet next month.
Next is Urban County.
The meeting for October was canceled. The next meeting is November the 10th.
And DDA.
Yep, we have our election of officers next week. The DDA board meeting was last week, had to be postponed because of the OMA issues and the governor's order, Supreme Court stuff. So we're gonna have our October meeting next week, including a discussion about holiday lighting.
Next is Friends of Rutherford Pool.
Sure. They had another board meeting. Construction is proceeded, and now it's coming down to the final issues with the bathhouse and getting that finished up. Looking at ways to present this for fundraising. Since this is a Friends of group, they're looking at donor support. They will be submitting an update for the newsletter for next month, and so we can look forward to that. So.
Housing Equity Leadership Team.
This group doesn't meet anymore, so I think we probably can take this one off.
And Youth Community Connection.
I don't even believe that one. I believe it changed, and I don't even know if that one was meeting the same way it used to. I have to, because I'm on the Police Advisory Commission now, but I'll have some information about how that stopped or how it came to a halt over the summer. And I'll get back with more information. I have no information on that this weekend.
All right, the next item on the agenda is council proposed business.
Okay. All right, let's, I'll go to my right, Councilmember Brian Jones Chance.
Nothing for me.
Okay. Coming below him, Councilmember Wilcoxon.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Going to his left, Councilmember Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor. I just mainly have two things to say. I didn't get a chance to say. I wanted to thank Captain Madison, Firefighter of the Year. I wanted to say that's a great honor for the city of Ypsilanti. And I wanted to say, who worked with DPW, he was left after 11 years, Mr. Anthony Bostic, who's a good friend of mine who worked there diligently for 11 years. And so he's moving on. And I just wanted to thank him for his service. I let him know that we appreciate him and we need 2 or 3 more like him. And so, let me turn my phone, sorry about that. And being a part of it, I was grateful enough to, I did get on the call a little bit when you had the meeting with the police, the police advisory board and things, just to listen a little bit. And I know we're gonna have another meeting coming up. So I got some interesting things to bring forth being a part of the YPAC. So as one of the ones on the committee or a liaison to it. So I got some interesting things coming up, but I have no more further business. I just wanted to give some kudos and some shout outs and congratulations.
Thank you. I didn't realize Mr. Bostic had retired. Yes, very good. Did he retire, resign to move on, or do you know?
Well, him and his family are moving to another location.
Oh, okay.
So he's
very good.
He served us diligently, and
yes, he did.
I hope somebody give him a party. I'm throwing it out there. Somebody give him a sticker, a watch, or something. There it is. At least an Ypsilanti mask, something to take with him. I'll start that's the swag bag.
He's already gone. I think he left this weekend.
I seen him today at the barbershop.
Oh, okay. Well, he told me he was.
But his mother's taking his kids out, but he's leaving Friday. So I'm going to squeeze him and hug him and give him something before Friday if we can. But thank you.
All right. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
No new business tonight. I think most of the things that are pressing were either one-off meetings or talked about in our discussions today. But what I will say is just want to let residents know in Ward 1 in particular around the tree trimming and tree maintenance that we had talked about several weeks back when we were having those storms and power outages. They are out and around and leaving the signage at particular homes where they will be continuing with the trimming, and they've been moving throughout the neighborhoods over the past month or so. So be on the lookout for that, and please be paying attention to those decals because they are asking for signatures depending on what type of maintenance they have to do in your yard. So I'm gonna also post that on social media so that folks know that it's continuing and what's happening around the tree trimming.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you. Most of my stuff is just related to Halloween. I first thank you to City Manager Frances McMullen for issuing a statement. She issued an official statement discouraging trick-or-treating and offered some safer alternatives. And I did share some information around to different neighborhood groups. And then folks did raise concerns about Ipsy Glow. So I reached out to Jennifer Goulet today. She has since responded and given me a full outline, and they've shared on the Ipsy Glow page on Facebook some of their details. So just for everyone to know, and then anyone who's watching, the luminary processions and dancing in the streets won't be happening this year. So I know folks were concerned potentially about that. Most of the installations are designed in storefronts so that folks can walk or drive by socially distanced with masks. There were some concerns about like the pop-up vendors, but those have been in place since we've had the street closed, and they have been adhering to social distancing and mask wearing. So I don't see that as an issue. They're also gonna have signs all around the installations suggesting, you know, the safety guidelines of social distancing, mask wearing, using hand sanitizer, all of that good stuff. But the big piece is obviously normally Ipsy Glow draws in a big crowd. There's lots of dancing and music and congregating in one area. That's not going to be a part of it this year. Just to make that like clear. And I don't know if anyone else has gotten questions, but it does appear that the health department issued guidelines, which Frances did include that when she released the statement just after our last meeting, with just like tips saying that Halloween wasn't canceled, like trick-or-treating wasn't canceled, with just safety tips. But one of the safety tips was to try to hand out the candy 6 feet away, which, you know, I'm curious how that's going to go, but I've just been telling everybody that I think it's a bad idea, but, you know, do what you wish. And I did share some of the, you know, that we all discussed, and it seemed kind of, there was a consensus that we would just discourage it. So just wanted to give that update, and that is all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Simmons.
Yep, I actually think I had some traffic issues, but I think we talked about it already. So I think I'm all set tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So is it the mayor or city manager next?
Communications from the mayor.
Okay, I just have just a couple of things, just mentioning in passing. On Saturday, council member Brian Jones Chance led a walk of from Perry School down to City Hall with people dropping their ballots into the slot there inside City Hall. And I got there a little bit early, and there were some young people there decorating the fence outside of City Hall for Ipsy Glow. So did see them. And if you haven't been by there, the fence, they did a nice job with that. There were, and it was interesting. It was nice to see people coming. I think while I was there with the group that marched down to City Hall, there were at least 3 or 4 other people that came dropping their ballots off. So it was good to see people voting. The report, I got a report from the Census Bureau. It's from the state, and actually I guess it was from the feds, and the return on the census was actually, they said it was 99.98 or something percent, where complete, that house doors were reached. And I don't understand how they, counted it all. I did check with Mr. Meyers just before meeting, and we had, in the city of Ypsilanti, we had just over 69% completion of the census. And for the enumerated, he said we had 99%. So it wasn't quite, I don't fully understand what enumerated means. I guess it's that every door was touched, or either directly or through the neighbors. But want to thank Council Member Wilcoxon and Council Member Morgan for attending the last town hall on community policing. There is another one coming up on the 27th, which is next Tuesday night, and the chief will be presenting his plan for community policing. If council people would be able to mark your calendars and attend, it would be nice, so that we're all hearing what he has to say at the same time. So, and that's pretty much what I have. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Pretty much everybody has touched on everything. I did let you know that we're working diligently on the social worker posting, and that should be coming up soon. Secondly, I wanted to talk about parking. I know I had gotten a few comments because warnings were put on vehicles that, and they kind of confused them as if they were getting a citation, but the warnings were to let people know that citations would start being issued. Parking enforcement would happen starting in November. I believe it's November the 2nd. But we're going to clean up that language, and we're also going to put some clearer language on the kiosk to let people know that that's when parking enforcement will begin again. Also wanted to give council a heads up that there will be some murals going up in the city downtown And it's sponsored by Ipsy Glow. There's going to be some on sidewalks and some really neat artwork in windows of businesses and things like that. So I think that's a good added touch. And due to COVID, staff is working with, particularly I'm working with the DDA to come up with some creative things to get residents out of the house this winter and to still try to bolster our downtown businesses. We're doing some additional lighting in Riverside Art. I'm sorry, not Riverside Art, in Riverside Park this year. And DTE Foundation has graciously contributed a donation so that we can provide some additional lighting like we used to, so that we can draw people to the downtown area. And I know you've noticed the water tower that's changing colors now. So we're trying to do some things to let people know that Ypsilanti is still alive. And so if you got any other creative solutions or any creative activities, we'd be happy to entertain them, entertaining a possible winter fest as well. So that's where I'm at, trying to keep Ipsy alive during this COVID season and during the winter until we make it back to the spring. Also, we entered into negotiations with our police command staff, and I'm happy to report that I believe we've reached a settlement, and it should be going to COM for ratification very soon. And this will be a 3-year contract.
Okay.
And I think that's all I have.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? Thank you. Okay. Chief Hobbs, did you have anything for us tonight?
I have to unmute myself. No, it was my pleasure to nominate Captain Madison for the Firefighter of the Year award. Being a past recipient, we've had several in the City of Ypsilanti Fire Department, but in my opinion, none more deserving than Captain Madison for the work he's done. And I was glad to recognize him just prior to his retirement. His retirement is in April.
Okay, very good. Yeah.
Nice, congratulations.
Right. So if any of you see him congratulating me, I did send congratulations through the email that our HR person, Jones, sent us. So, all right, guess what? If nobody helped, yes, Council Member Wilcoxon.
I move to adjourn.
Okay.
Hey.
That's what I was going to ask for. You're on it tonight. Wow. Okay.
Bye.
There was a second. Okay. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. All right. Everyone stay safe, stay well. Remember, we still are fighting. We still are in the midst of a pandemic, and things are rising around, cases are rising. Fortunately, not in Ypsilanti, but I understand that Ann Arbor has become a hot spot, and also Dearborn has become a hot spot. So let's just all stay safe, stay well, and advise those around us to do the same so that we aren't here in Ypsilanti as a hot spot. So thank you, everybody. Have a good one.